In the spirit of authenticity in the truest sense, this week, Acting Week 7, those who are new here, I am Braden Griffiths. I'm documenting my journey in becoming an actor. To catch you up, I got into acting school in Toronto. I'll be heading there in September. Currently, it is March the 3rd today, and it has been 7 weeks of this time. I've done some monologues. I've started writing a feature. I've gotten back to a place of rhythm after losing it for a long time. But this is one of those weeks where I feel like a loser, you know? And I lost my voice over the weekend, and I will explain how I got to that point. But for context on who I am and why I've even come to this place is, you know, when I was about 17 years old, I really wasn't feeling so good. You know, I was overweight, not terribly so, but it felt like, you know, I was biggest blimp on earth. I felt not super attractive, not super confident in social situations. I didn't know where I was going to be when I finished, or what I was going to be doing when I finished high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I cared about. And it was a period of like loss. And then I had a couple experiences which I interpreted as like a humiliating experience. And then from that, I chose to go very aggressively into the aggressive mindset, self-help way of doing things, which was, you know, pour all that negative energy that you feel, either from your childhood or the things that you've experienced that you've perceived as those negative events, and use them as your fuel forward. And I did this for about, 5 years. Last night I watched The Dark Knight Rises, and I'm going to spoil this movie. So if you haven't seen The Dark Knight Rises, you gotta lock in, bro. It's like the greatest superhero movie ever produced. But Bane, when he breaks Batman's back, he's like, I wondered which would break first, your body or your spirit. And I felt like that was the epitome of what I wanted to find out about myself. What would break first, my body or my spirit? And a goal I had set for myself was to be a varsity basketball player. I'm gonna make Wilfrid Laurier's basketball team. And I read every book. I was working out 4 or 5 hours a day. I was willing everything with my strength. And then I tore a muscle in my back, like in my mid-lat oblique area, and my body broke. And then with that, my spirit was just despondent, because I couldn't do the one thing that that was my cop out. That was where all my fuel was going. That's where all my anger was going, right? Is into basketball. And then I got into bodybuilding to strengthen my body. And then that became my new rhythm. That became my new thing. And then eventually, like a calendar year later, partying was my thing, being social, learning how to be attractive, learning how to date, those different things. That was my force, my expression of the things that I felt. And eventually that broke down. And then later on it was sales and freeing myself from the matrix in a sense, and getting out of this world, in a sense, the Western world, the 9-to-5 rat race, in a sense. And then sales, it broke me spiritually. That's what broke. And it got to a point where it felt so deadening to do it. I was so detached from what my purpose was, because I always wanted to tell stories. I always wanted to, pursue film. That was why I wanted to get into business and sales in the first place, is to make money so that I could fund these projects. But what I realized is that each time I would be making these leaps, I had a safety net. And not too unlike, you know, Bruce Wayne when he's in the pit after he gets his back broken. And he just keeps trying. He just keeps trying to jump to escape. But the whole time he's got the rope on. You know, he's got the safety net. He's got the safety net of for me, it was sales and business. You know, like even if I fail as an actor, even if I fail, you know, pursuing film, I'll still have this thing. I'll still have money. I'll still be making my 20K a month or whatever. Even if I fail at basketball, I'll still have the body. I'll still have, you know, the physicality or like the attractiveness. And then when all of that stuff was stripped away, you know, when the meaning of it was stripped away and it was lost, then I was left with who I really am. And that's an ugly realization. You know, when you realize that the whole time you've just been putting up masks of who you really are. You've been trying to hide from who you really are. And this is not an advice channel, and I don't want it to be, because I'm still trying to figure my shit out, you know? This is a live documentation of me trying to figure it out. And out of the dissolving of all of these masks came an apathy that I had never experienced before in my life, where everything that I had pursued in self-improvement felt meaningless. The hustle, the nonsense, the aggression, it all felt meaningless. And then out the other side of it, you know, comes this, it's almost like childlike, okay, well, what else are we gonna do? So then, you know, start doing some other things, start, you know, reintegrating with some of the habits that I've been doing. And I've been hesitant over the last few months since this event of, like, you know, this kind of breakdown, this cosmic breakdown of these masks that I'm putting on to protect who I really am. And then I'm just left with me. I'm just left with who I really am. And that's scary. And then this past weekend, you know, I've been boozing a lot. I have been in the last few months, because, you know, just a little party it up, go to a bar, you know, things are happening. You know, that's been my thing. Just to try and think less and try and be so less. I restricted myself so hard that the pendulum swung back the other way of excess on the other side. And I'm not very good at moderating these swings. And I got so sick this past weekend. I felt the worst I've ever felt in my life. I'm gonna do a different video talking more in depth about the events that transpired, but, you know, the culminating realization is that this was just yet another mask. This party guy, this version of me who's, you know, super social, singing at the bar, you know, doing all this stuff, that, like, that's an aspect of me, just as, you know, the sales bro version of me, just as the gym bro, just as, you know, the theater kid or the guy that's in church. You know, these are all, like, facets of my personality, but they aren't me. They fundamentally are not me. So then, who am I is the question that arises, and that's a heavy question, a really heavy question. The cosmic weight of that question is what crushes and has crushed man for thousands of years. Why am I here? What am I doing? What are we doing here? What's the whole plan? And what I realized is that me jumping with the rope, you know, me just trying to rip it, just trying to brute force it. You know, Bruce Wayne, he's just like, in the pit, he's told repeatedly, this is not a matter of the body, this is a matter of the spirit. Your spirit will lead you. The spirit will lead the body once it is liberated and once it needs to make the jump. And one insight from the movie specifically is like, you know, he said he didn't fear anything. He doesn't even fear death. He does not fear death. He does not fear failure. But then the guy who's in the cave or in the pit, he tells him, you think that this makes you strong because you don't fear anything. This makes you weak. This makes you reckless. It means that you just take a beating time and time and time again. You just take hits. There's nothing noble about just suffering for the sake of suffering. There's something noble about suffering when it means something. But when does it mean something? Is when you are led by the Spirit. When the Spirit needs to make it, when you realize that fear and you allow that fear to exist and be a part of you, because that fear is just reverberations from everything else that's happened in your entire life. It's all led up to this point, and there's usually a few key events that's why we act the way we act our entire lives. And those things are what we fear the most. And I realize the thing that I fear the most is, being in the same place 5 years from now. Never taking the stab at acting. Never genuinely going for it. And never just putting up with loss after loss after loss and just being okay with not realizing my potential. Because I know that a lot of people live good lives by not doing, acting and things like that. Or, starting some business or, trying to be a professional athlete and not having these absurd goals, right? A lot of people are happy. But I don't know if I can be. I don't know if I could just be good without that. Because that weighs on me, because it feels like God has sent this to me. He's placed that desire in my heart, and for me to deny that would be me denying him, me denying my highest purpose. It's Jonah running from his call in Rome, and then he gets swallowed by a whale, and then God brings him right back to shore. And the thing that we hold on to, it's, for me, it's the sin. It's the vices, the little safety nets, like a job or a career or, a business, a backup, versus just letting go and letting God take you where he needs you to go. And just trusting and being willing to do what it takes, instead of having this arrogance, which I've had, of, oh no, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it my way. And then this weekend, realizing how arrogant I was when I can't even calm my stomach down from choices that I've made of drinking too much. I can't even do that. And I'm challenging God. I'm telling him what he should be doing. I can't even settle my own stomach. I gotta beg him to help me. It's funny. It's really funny. So this journey is the only one for me worth taking, and I have no idea where or how it's gonna come to pass. But I know that I have trust that it will. And there's some certain things that I need to work out, and I need to start thinking more seriously and genuinely getting more serious about.
I wanted to tag on to week 7, just what I was actually meaning and what I actually think that going pro in a sense, or taking things more seriously actually looks. Because I've been putting out the videos, I the monologue that I'm learning, I write daily, but a few key changes that I wanted to make is my physique is one. This is a major benefit that will never not serve me if I can get it right. Context: I was fat like probably 5 years ago. Got very into fitness and just self-help in general. Since then, I've always stayed in the gym, but I've never been able to reach like, stage ready or like, screen ready, in terms of abs or just definition or size or like anything exceptional. I think that there's a large layer of visceral fat still on my body, and I think that my metabolism from doing a lot of extreme dieting and stuff like that, I think that it's been pretty beat up. So what I'm doing right now is I'm gonna do 3 to 4 consistent meals. All the Hollywood guys talk about chicken and rice. So if I do a protein and a healthy carb, like a rice or a sweet potato or a potato or something that's like reasonable, and then like oatmeal and eggs and some other kinds of proteins there. That's the way that I feel like I'm going to get my leanest, and then I'm taking out alcohol for at least like a period of time, it'll be good for the mental state and focus and clarity as well, and just honoring God and doing what I feel like He's called me to do. And then the second thing is a buddy of mine called me, and he started talking to me about what it actually looks like to get representation and what that actually means, because those are the types of people that can genuinely change your life. Because if it's not, I think that youth is on my side here. I'm still unk compared to 16-year-olds that have just been in drama school their entire lives, but 23, I feel like if I had the right representation, if I could package myself properly, then I could be put into game-changing situations where I can prove myself, and can have those different opportunities. And having that while I'm in Toronto, or like before I get to Toronto, would be incredible. So the plan is to tie those two together, is if I can lose some weight in the next month, and then get some really good headshots. And for now, I'm going to start building like my own lead list of these different agencies and these people. And then there's also different services that's kind of like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but for agents and people in the film industry. I got out of sales to then create my own sales job in acting. So, and on top of that, just, I think putting more energy towards the craft is going to be a big thing. And even in my appearance, I'm trying to grow out my hair, because I feel like that it's like kind of like a typecast thing, and I still have to get more narrow on what I kind of want to go for. But and size is on my side as well. I'm about 6'4", about 225 right now. It's like a normal amount of muscle mass. I'm definitely not like Jason Momoa or any of the Hemsworth brothers, but I have some size, and if I can cut 20 pounds in 3 months, maybe a bit more, depending on that. If I can get some visible ab definition, if I can grow out my hair a bit longer, get the man bun back. I had that years ago when I was hooping a lot. Try and clear up my skin a bit more, and just have my grooming and stuff on point. I feel like that stuff is gonna compound well, and it'll just be helpful, because everyone in Hollywood's pretty, so gotta get on the gravy train, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, if I can try and narrow down the types of things that I'd be going for, and there's a couple people that it's like person that I know that knows them is like an actor or something like that, or has gotten some kind of role. So I think just like building that kind of repertoire, that kind of lead list in my head, and then reaching out and trying to get a hold of some kind of real representation. I have to do my research and thoroughly understand which agencies, probably mainly in Toronto, because I can't afford to just like fly to New York or LA all the time. At least not at present with my $0 funding funding for this. So that's just the add-on of what I'm actually doing differently, and what I think involves taking things more seriously, and going pro is actually like looking at the ways in which I can make this happen. And you know, I'm going to be going to school. I think that the skill set's going to develop there a lot, because I'm going to be working on all those different things that they do. But these are fully controllables as far as like who I'm getting in front of, and also like how I look when I'm in front of them. I think that those are keys. And then I need to do some work on like the branding and marketing components of things. So it'd be interesting. But boys, we're trucking. We are trucking. All right, take it easy.